Good afternoon and welcome to the News Roundup for Thursday, November 13, 2025. I'm Bill Thomas, and here's what's happening right now. President Trump triumphantly signing a funding bill which finally brings to an end the longest government shutdown in our nation's history. A shocking new poll revealing that 4 out of 10 young American women now say they want to permanently leave the U.S., and a large group of global lawmakers now joining forces, all to combat the Chinese Communist regime's abhorrent forced organ harvesting program. Also, Russia holding out a questionable olive branch to Ukraine while simultaneously making an ominous prediction about their ongoing war. And a pilot with forged credentials ferries hundreds of passengers all over Europe before officials finally catch on to his sky-high scam. All this and a bunch more coming up right now on the Big Roundup. We have a great deal to get to today, and we begin with an official ceremony at the White House, which finally brings a welcome end to a brutally expensive and weeks-long government closure. President Trump gathering with Republican leaders in the Oval Office and signing what he calls an incredible funding bill to get our country up and running again and finally end the government shutdown once and for all. It's about time. At the get-together, 47 also pointing the finger directly at extremist Democrats for unnecessarily causing the problem in the first place. He accuses them of holding our nation hostage for political reasons, of trying to extort the American taxpayers as well, and last but not least, of costing our country, check this out, $1.5 trillion as a result of their efforts. Well, great. That cash could have been used to maybe pay down our national debt, but it's gone now. Additionally, he's now doubling down on his push for the GOP to end the filibuster so something like this never happens again. Meanwhile, and according to congressional leaders, the measure reopens the government, restores a number of critical services, and puts an end to the hardship caused by the Democrats by funding the government through the end of January 2026. Coming up pretty quick. The bill also funds a number of SNAP benefits, veterans programs, and crucial military projects through the end of September. Also reverses a bunch of federal layoffs and provides back pay for all government employees who didn't get their checks during the shutdown. You gotta pay your employees. For their part, many congressional Democrats remain furious with their handful of colleagues in the Senate who broke ranks and voted to end the stalemate. They argue this new bill does nothing to address the health care crisis they were all holding out for in the first place, and they claim that if the GOP doesn't soon extend tax credits for Obamacare, they'll eventually pay for that mistake by losing their jobs in next year's election. Well, final thought, this is the News Roundup Lowdown. Like Jerry Ford, the 38th president of these United States, said so eloquently back in 1974, our long national nightmare is over. Now, if Editor Pranov has that clip, we'll plug it in so you can see it and hear it for yourself.
My fellow Americans, our long national nightmare is over.
You know, it's so nice. I got to say it twice. Our long national nightmare. Yeah, it's over. I always wondered if President Ford drove a Ford or maybe a Chevy or a Plymouth. Hey, producer Davey, did President Ford drive a Ford?
Oh, Bill, he drove a lightly used LTD.
I love that Ford LTD. That's some fine automobile right there. This whole debacle was nothing more than a useless, feeble attempt by Democrats to do all they could to hamstring the Trump administration, dismantle our country, and make each and every one of us suffer through an entirely unnecessary government shutdown. You know, to Chuck Schumer and all of his left-wing cronies, you failed miserably. You had no endgame in sight. You've been stopped in your tracks, and not only by clear-thinking, flag-saluting Republicans, but by members of your own party as well. You know, here's the sad part, the tragic part. House Minority Leader Hakeem Jeffries, he just doesn't get it. Still thinks this is a fight with only an A or B option. He says either Republicans agree to extend the Affordable Care Act tax credits this year, or the American people will throw Republicans out of their jobs next year. A thoroughly false narrative. Be careful. Guys like that, they'll always tell you there are only two options in life, when in fact there are actually tons of additional options. He's a one-trick pony, just like that 1980 album by Paul Simon. I like that album. And if anyone's getting thrown out of office next year, it'll most likely be more Democrats who are all bark, but no substance, and clearly no bite. We hope you're as thrilled with the end of the shutdown as we are right here in the News Roundup studios, and talk to us at newsroundupwithbill@gmail.com. Davey to the email bag, and who do we go to?
Okay, Bill, we have Maureen chipping in from Washington, D.C.
Hiya, Maureen. Tell us what you're thinking.
She says this entire Democrat-led shutdown was a complete waste of time and money, and in the end, nothing was accomplished.
No, nothing was accomplished. I think they made kind of fools of themselves. Even James Carville, which really is any Democrat's best friend, even James Carville admits that Democrats, they dropped the ball on this one. What they've done is no different than a 14-year-old kid getting into a boxing ring with Mike Tyson. Well, Junior might score some press, but at the end of the program, you pretty much know who's going to win and who's going to get bruised, battered, and beaten down. This wasn't exactly what I would call a fair fight. All right, change things up just a bit now. Shift our focus to a troubling new Gallup poll, which shows that a growing number of younger women here in the U.S. are so unhappy with the state of our nation that they'd prefer to live somewhere else. Be careful, kiddos. You're living in paradise, and you don't even know it. According to the poll, nearly 40% of American women between the ages of 15 and 44 say they're so dissatisfied with life here in the U.S. they'd prefer to permanently move to another country. The poll also reveals that over the last decade or so, the number of young American women who want to leave our shores has actually quadrupled. It shows these numbers, they've been climbing ever since Obama's last year in the White House. They were extremely high during the Biden years as well. I kind of understand that. And that they're partly driven by opposition to the country's leadership. No matter who's in charge, we've got ourselves some unhappy campers. Additionally, the poll shows that just under 20% of younger American men feel the same way. And it goes on to explain that this so-called gender gap between young people who say they want to leave the U.S., it's the largest one they've ever encountered. I'm staying put. The poll also says that some of the differences could be due to the fact that younger women are much more likely to favor the Democratic Party. It says that right now, nearly 60% of them say they lean toward the Democrats, compared to less than 40% of younger men who say the same. Meanwhile, among all American age groups, the poll shows that about 1 in 5 said they'd be willing to permanently abandon the U.S. for another country. Well, we're going to miss you, but can I have your parking spot? And final thought, this is the News Roundup Lowdown. It's a very intriguing story, and whenever I catch wind of a young person whining about wanting to bust out of the USA and move forever to another country, personally, I salute them. Yeah, I salute them, I pat them on their heads, and I wish them well. First, before I do that, however, as a proud American, I say the Pledge of Allegiance because I'm happy to be here. Then I look around the room to see if there are members of our armed forces anywhere nearby, and if they are, I take a moment to thank them for their service, for protecting our country, our freedoms. After that, I move around town freely, and I do anything that strikes my fancy. I say what I want, eat, sing, dance, and wear what I want. I vote for whomever I choose, and I do it all without any government interference. Back to the overburdened young ladies who are in search of greener pastures. We're going to miss you, and if you're looking for superior living conditions, well, try these on for size. You got Cuba. It's in the Caribbean. Sunshine, blue skies, an ocean breeze. Also poverty, hunger, and a communist government. Russia would be a fine option with real good victuals. They got borscht and beef stroganoff, but they have a habit of murdering people in other countries. And I hope war isn't a deal breaker for you. Got North Korea as well. Also China. And so you know that whole human rights violations thing, it doesn't apply all the time to everybody. And if you go there, you might catch a break. So maybe just think of it as a possible option. And again, we're sorry to hear you're so displeased with your substandard living conditions here in the USA. And frankly, I'm not sure how we'll get along without you. In fact, when Rosie O'Donnell bailed out of the country, I thought our entire country would collapse. And that's what I would call a close call. And again, I'm staying put. Hope you are as well. And what are you thinking about youngsters taking a hike? Drop us a note, and we're at newsroundupwithbill@gmail.com. Davey, I am a proud American, and what are folks saying?
Okay, Bill, you got another proud American out in Missoula, Montana named Roy.
Hello, Roy. What you got in your mind?
He says, so long, see ya, don't let the door hit you on the way out.
That's exactly what I was thinking. Hey, look, this is the greatest thing about the USA. Now, you think about that. It actually takes a little bit of effort to get in here legally, unless you're born here, but it takes effort to get in here legally. But getting out, it's real easy. You buy a one-way ticket to your favorite destination. Choose wisely, and then watch your step. Moving along, turn our attention now to a group of international lawmakers who are doing all they can to safeguard human rights, stop illegal organ harvesting, and fight against the Chinese communist regime's global assault on freedom. Following a critical summit in Brussels, a group called the Interparliamentary Alliance on China, they're called the IPAC, they're now vowing to eradicate the Chinese Communist Party's repulsive forced organ harvesting program, which, if you don't know, traffics in illegally extracted body parts. It's disgusting. The group includes members from 28 countries, and it's now pushing to implement a bunch of new laws designed to hold everyone who's involved with China's state-sanctioned organ removal program accountable for their actions, which are purely evil. Among their desired goals, a ban on so-called transplant tourism, extreme sanctions against any organization that takes part in China's transplant program, and complete transparency when it comes to getting a transplant. Now, in case you're not aware, for nearly 3 decades now, the Chinese Communist Party, or CCP, they've been forcibly removing organs from a number of their political prisoners and then profiting enormously from the sale of those body parts to needy individuals. Investigators point to the mass incarceration of Falun Gong practitioners. Many of my friends are practitioners as a prime example. They say that the group's healthy lifestyle makes them a perfect donor pool for the CCP's plan to harvest them at will and use those organs as part of their billion-dollar on-demand transplant industry. Final thought, and this is the News Roundup Lowdown. Lawmakers from more than a couple of dozen countries banding together to create laws meant to hamstring China's participation in this terrible thing. This forced organ harvesting is both noble and well-intentioned. Making it illegal for people in certain parts of the world to travel to China for an organ transplant, absolutely the humane thing to do. But installing a worldwide or even a regional system of checks and balances, it would be, for all practical purposes, almost impossible. There's always going to be a black market. And right here at home, here in the U.S., as many as 17 people die every day waiting on that list for an organ transplant. Also, there are over 100,000 people on the National Transplant Waiting List, with a new name being added every 9 minutes. Globally, as you can imagine, much larger. Those numbers are huge. And China, they figured it out. They're playing right into this. This is their version of the perfect crime, and big bucks are involved. A person with a conscience would hopefully face illness or even death with dignity rather than going to China to purchase body parts for a fee. Yeah, you might live a little bit longer, but you do so at the expense of individuals who are being tortured and having portions of their bodies removed and sold by China's communist regime. It's a complicated subject. It's very uncomfortable, but share your thoughts with us. Share your thoughts and your ideas. We're at newsroundupwithbill@gmail.com. Very sensitive, Davey, and I imagine folks have a lot to say about this.
Oh, people are furious about this, Bill,
Yeah.
and well, they should be.
Sure.
We've got Ida checking in from Queens, New York.
Ida, welcome to the program. Share your thoughts, please.
She says, every time I turn around, the Chinese communists are committing some type of crime against humanity.
Yeah.
They're the worst regime in the world, and we should have nothing to do with them.
Well, we have to have something to do with them. We have these trade agreements. They need us. We need them. We talk about that quite a bit here on the program. But this forced organ harvesting can only be described as absolutely Neanderthalic. It's right up there with countries who manufacture deadly drugs and make millions or even billions of dollars by distributing and selling that poison, which is, as you know, responsible for destroying precious lives and entire communities right here at home and all over the world. All right, now some additional headlines that we are keeping a very close watch on here in the News Roundup newsroom. Since we were just talking about China, we'll start here in Beijing. China's President Xi Jinping cozying up to the visiting King of Spain and offering him greater economic security as the Chinese leader seeks to expand his country's relationship with the European Union. Spain, watch your step. You got to decide whose side you are on. And turning now to breaking news from Moscow, the Kremlin proclaiming that sooner or later, Ukraine's going to be forced to make a deal with Russia and arguing that right now, Kyiv's negotiating position, it's getting worse with each passing day. 4 years into this mess, and that war continues to rage on. Back here in the USA, Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy says that if all goes according to plan, it looks like our nation's air travel system, it's going to be fully recovered in just about a week. And think about it, that's just in time for the Thanksgiving holiday. Keep the country moving. In the meantime, state officials throughout the country say they're working as fast as they can to distribute SNAP benefits to millions of Americans who've been waiting for the past couple of weeks, all to get their hands on their November allotments. Scooting along to the world of business now, and a quick peek at a couple of stories causing a ruckus in finance, the markets, and more. And by the way, speaking of the markets, we checked. The Dow was down nearly 800 points today. Not a good day for the Dow. All right, leading things off, the head man at Ford saying that right now his company has 5,000 job openings for mechanics, which offer a six-figure salary, but he's kind of unable to find anyone to fill those jobs due to a drastic shortage of skilled manual labor here in the U.S. I'm not mechanically inclined. I can't fix a darn thing. But for six figures, I'll figure it out. I'll learn, and pretty darn quick. Moving right along and sticking with the auto world, Toyota announcing they've just begun making batteries at their brand new $14 billion factory in North Carolina. And that moving ahead, they're going to be spending another $10 billion over the next 5 years, all to increase their manufacturing capabilities right here in America. Invest in the States. It's always a good bet. And changing the subject now to a bit of showbiz news, the number of households in the U.S. which still rely on cable TV to watch their favorite programs, My Favorite Martian, Family Ties, and all the rest, dropping severely. Only 15 years ago, nearly 90% of all homes had pay cable, but by the end of this year, that number is going to be down to only 50%. That is dramatic. In the meantime, the cost for streaming services continues to rise dramatically, and right now, consumers, they show no signs of cutting back. Yeah, they'll cut the cord, but they won't cut the streaming. And now a quick gander at the lighter side of news. This is an interesting story here. A high school gym teacher in Maine has just shattered a world record by sinking more than 1,500 three-point shots on his local basketball court. Did that in just 1 hour. I'll tell you, 1,500 three-point shots on the basketball court in an hour and 60 minutes, it's mildly impressive, but I do have to point out that my pal right over there, Engineer Jamie, she once scored 2,500 three-point shots on the basketball court. She did that in half the time, only 30 minutes. Now, for full transparency, for full disclosure, this happened during what we call a dream sequence right here on the News Roundup program back in 1988, maybe 1989, a little fuzzy on the date, but it still counts. So congratulations, Engineer Jamie, you are a rock star. Now, Producer Davey, dream sequences, they do count, right?
Oh, yeah, Bill. Of course they count. And my congratulations to Jamie as well. Well
right
done.
On. She's a rock star, I'll tell you what. All right, a crosstown bus in Manhattan has just been crowned as the slowest ride in the Big Apple. All the frustrated passengers say their daily commute is pure torture and that the coach takes so long to make its way across the city, they'd be better off walking. Well, yeah, the New York City's M42 bus, it is the transportation equivalent of a bottle of Heinz ketchup. Do we have any Heinz ketchup? That's the ketchup that takes an hour to exit the jar. Far too slow. But here's the deal. Perhaps in the old days, you'd have been better off walking. But New York, if you haven't heard yet, they got a brand new mayor. Svengali, Pastrami, Tom Dooley. Producer David,
Bill,
a little help?
No, Bill, the mayor's name is Mamdani.
Mamdani, that's what it is, Mamdani. Now, Mamdani says the buses, they're going to be free. So think about it. In life, aces beat deuces, lobster is better than fish sticks, and free beats walking any day of the week. A co-pilot, not a captain, a co-pilot allegedly forged a whole bunch of official-looking documents in order to land a highly coveted gig as a captain for a couple of European airlines. He then flew jets carrying hundreds of passengers, folks like you and I, all over the continent before authorities finally caught on to his sky-high scam, and boom, they clipped his wings. Bottom line, becoming a credentialed, talented, and well-trained airline captain takes a great deal of time, effort, training, and, money. And faking your way through the program and taking a liberty or two with your credentials, it seems just a little bit easier. Yeah. Also, it might be illegal, but if you get caught, what are they going to do? Are they going to revoke your pretend credentials? This guy's got it all figured out. And now it is time for us to call it a wrap on the Thursday edition of the Big News Roundup. And before we go, as we do each and every day right here on the big program, we like to share with you a very notable quote. And these illuminating words, they come to us today from the great, the legendary Bruce Lee, who once upon a time said, "The key to immortality is first living a life worth remembering." Bruce Lee was an American-born martial artist and actor who grew up in Hong Kong before returning to the States and becoming a huge movie star. And among his well-known projects, the all-time classic movie Enter the Dragon, as well as his groundbreaking role as Kato in the Green Hornet TV series. Now, Producer Davey, I don't think you know this, but I'm a big fan of Bruce and actually love that big documentary movie they made about him called Bruce Almighty, starring Jim Carrey. That was one of the best.
Bill, what are you talking about?
Bruce Almighty.
Bruce Almighty had nothing to do with Bruce Lee at all. Bruce Lee is a great martial artist.
Oh, I had no idea. All right, you learn something new every day on the program. I think you're wrong, but you learn something new on the program every day. And now it is time for us to bust on out. But before we go, don't forget the News Roundup motto. Ask not what your podcast can do for you. Ask what you can do for your podcast. For example, all we ask you to do is hit that subscribe button right there. Subscribe to the program so you never miss even a single episode. And if it's not too much to ask, it would greatly appreciate it if you'd hit up a couple of your friends or coworkers, some family members, ask them to subscribe to the channel as well. Come on, man. It's free. And now it looks like our time, officially up. So have an awesome day today. Please stay safe. And let's all continue to watch out for one another. With that, we'll go to engineer Jamie, the basketball hero, and ask Jamie to please dim the lights. We're going to gently fade to black, and we'll see you right back here tomorrow afternoon. Oh, and before we go, Davey, double check your facts if you would, please. I'm pretty sure that movie, Bruce Almighty, was about the life and the times of Bruce Lee. Check on that if you would, please.
I don't need to check anything, Bill. Bruce Lee is a fantastic artist who's made tons of great movies. Everybody knows who he is.
Bruce Lee.
And Bruce Almighty is a comedy movie directed by Tom Shadyac, starring Jim Carrey. They are decades apart. It has nothing to do with that. They have nothing to do with each other,
hear you.
Bill. I don't know where you come up with these things.
I can't hear anything.
I mean, really, what's going on? I mean, for the life of me, can't figure it out.
Every day.
I mean, you got to know who Bruce